serve as the Conservation Outreach Coordinator here at the State Botanical Garden of Georgia, and we're here today at the Mimsy Lanier Center for Native Plant Studies. I'm happy that you all have joined me today as we learn how to plant a potted pollinator garden, or a pocket prairie. So this is a really great activity for kids or adults alike who are just kind of dipping their toes into the world of native plants. And even small potted planters can really benefit pollinators and other wildlife. So this is a really fun thing to do, and it's also a great way to watch plants grow throughout their life cycle. Also, let's talk about what we need to begin. So first, we're starting with one of these big terracotta planters, and you can use any large planter of your choice. We just happened to find this back in the old shed. It's beneficial to get a planter that has a porous kind of material, so terracotta is great. You can use wood. If you use a plastic container, just know that it's not porous, so it tends to hold on moisture, and you may have issues with root rot. So that's why we're using this material. So a fun trick when you're planting with these big planters, right? You don't want to fill them completely up with soil. It's going to be really heavy in case you have to move it, and also it takes longer to drain. So again, issues with root rot. So a fun trick that we do is we take old milk jugs or whatever you have lying around, you can crumple them up and kind of make a layer in the bottom. So that allows for better drainage, and it's a lot lighter in case you need to move it. So we also need our media. Regular bagged potting media is often too fine textured for native plants. They need really good drainage or they'll get root rot. So I will suggest using the secret recipe, not so secret actually, of Heather Alley. It's in her Guide to Propagation of 30 Native Perennials for Pollinators, and that actually contains soil conditioner, which is just composted pine bark. So this is less of a fine texture, and it helps increase drainage of the media. So I'll post a little picture of that recipe. It also contains this plantone, which is an organic fertilizer. So we need our media, we need our planter, and we've got our secret solution to making the planter lighter as well. So that's what we need to get started. So this is the fun part. Let's talk about the native plants that you need for this potted display. So I'm going to use the really common thriller, spiller, and filler method. So thrillers are often tall. They have bright flowers. They're kind of the star of the show. So we're actually using butterfly weed, or Asclepias tuberosa. This is going to be our thriller. And it's great because its blooms last for a really long time in the summer. They're bright orange, they pop, so this is a really great species. And because we're planting this planter for pollinators, it's also good to mention that this is the larval host plant of the milkweed, or the monarch butterfly, and also the milkweed tussock moth. So this is a really great thriller. The spiller that we're using today is Conradina. Sometimes it's called false rosemary, and it's native to North Florida. But this is a really great fine textured evergreen aromatic shrub, and it's a really great spiller. It will kind of drape over the side of the pot. That adds a little bit of drama, and it actually grounds the planter. So this will bloom in the early spring, and it has these really pretty small flowers that support a lot of native early season solitary bees. So this is our spiller. And fillers add bulk, and they're often kind of more of a foliage plant. So we've got our solidago, or downy goldenrod here. This is going to be our filler, and that's because it has really nice foliage all throughout the summer, and actually in the fall when it blooms, it kind of takes the place as thriller, as our butterfly weed is kind of petering out. So with just these three plants, we are creating a planter that has year-round blooming from spring all the way to fall. It includes larval host species. This goldenrod actually supports over 100 species of moths and butterflies. So this is a really high impact planter ecologically and also aesthetically. Now we're going to talk a little bit about placement, and so you want to think about how each of these plants looks throughout the growing season and also how tall they get. So our filler plant, the downy goldenrod, that's going to be kind of our backdrop. It gets taller compared to the rest of these plants, and it's going to serve as a really nice backdrop throughout the spring and the summer when it just has its foliage. So we're going to put that guy in the back. And something else that's good to note is if your plant is root bound, you want to kind of tease the roots out. You don't want them to keep circling. It's not good for the plant. So I'm talking really gently pulling these roots apart. You don't want to rip at them, but this is a really great way to ensure good growth of your new plants. So we tease those apart. And the other thing that I want to mention when you're planting is not to bury the crown. We don't want to deal with any kind of crown rot, and so the crown is the part of the plant where the roots meet the shoots. So this line of soil should really line up with the line of the soil in your planter. So we've got our draping spillers over the front, our fillers in the back. And the last thing to mention when you're planting your plants is really try to resist the urge to pat your soil down after you plant. People love doing it. It's almost like you're tucking your little baby into bed. It feels good. It feels like you've finished a task. But in reality, what you're doing is you're reducing the airspace within your soil media. So it's going to hold on to more moisture. It's going to lead to root rot, and the roots can't grow as well through compacted soil. So try not to press down on your plants after you plant. So here we've got our planted planter with our 3 species that are going to look really great all year round. So now that we've planted our potted pollinator garden, let's talk a little bit about maintenance. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to mulch the planter. And so that will help with moisture loss in the heat of the summer. So if you have this soil conditioner like what we used in the potting mix, you can actually use this to mulch the pot. And it looks really nice. It's fine textured. It's going to look a lot better than a thick, chunky pine bark mulch. And you can create a thin layer around these plants. And that's going to really benefit you guys in the summer, so your planter doesn't dry out too quickly. So we want to mulch. The other thing to think about is feeding. So we did include some of this organic fertilizer in the mix, Plantone, but the nutrients in the mix are going to get depleted pretty quickly. So we like to add a slow release fertilizer to the top. This is called top dressing. You can really get any kind of granular slow release fertilizer that you find in your home and garden store. There's 3-month and 6-month formulations, and just sprinkle a little bit around the base of each plant, and that's going to make sure that your plants are healthy throughout the growing season. they'll be able to protect themselves better from pest and disease issues, and they're going to look a lot nicer. So we really recommend feeding. And lastly, you're going to want to prune your plants, especially the taller ones. So in this case, we would really just prune our solidago. This can get around 3 feet tall, and you kind of want to tame the beast. So we like to give it a chop about 1/2 to 2/3 of its regular size in about July. And we've learned that this is actually called the Chelsea chop. The Chelsea chop refers to timing your pruning of your perennials with the Chelsea flower show. And that happens in May, so we're actually doing it a little bit later, but just a fun little fact. It's called the Chelsea chop. So this pruning is going to do 2 things. It's going to refresh the foliage of your plant, but it's also going to encourage lateral growth. So when you chop these tops off, it's going to put out more shoots. It's going to make a fuller looking plant that's going to look nice as your backdrop, and it's going to prevent it from flopping over as some of the asters tend to do. So we've planted our planter, we've talked about maintenance. I want to talk a little bit about why we chose these species for this planter. So these are actually 3 of the winners of Georgia Pollinator Plants of the Year program for 2021. So we asked plant lovers all across the state, what's your favorite pollinator plant for the 4 categories: spring bloomer, summer bloomer, fall bloomer, and Georgia native. We got a lot of nominations in, and a selection committee voted on these winning plants based on ease of propagation, ecological value, and how attractive they are in the landscape. So these are really stunning plants that we know do well. And again, they provide season-long blooming. So we've got blooming from the spring all the way to the fall, and they're really valuable ecologically. So again, these are the winners for 2021. So keep an eye out for more information about where to get these plants next year. But also we're looking for nominations for the year 2022. So check out our website at botgarden.uga.edu. You can find the tab for this program, and you can submit your own nominations. And we'd love to hear from you all. What are your favorite pollinator plants? But for now, do some reading about these species. They're really great for the garden, and we hope that you enjoy them just as much as we do.